Welcome to Black and Blue, the State of Law Enforcement, a special report in the wake of George Floyd's death. I'm your host, Jessica Kwong, here with four former New York Police Department officers. Cleveland Bannister, who served as an officer and taught in the police academy. We have Clifton Hollingsworth, who served as a second grade detective and also as director of public safety at Monroe College. Daryl Jarvis, who worked as a detective and also served as director of public safety at Monroe College. And finally, Raymond Benitez, who served as a sergeant. Welcome all to the show. Thank you so much for spending this time with me this afternoon. How are y'all today?
Fine.
Great. Well, I want to get all your perspectives on the incident that sparked all of these protests and activism. There's video footage that shows Floyd saying, "I can't breathe and I'm going to die." And yet Chauvin knelt on Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes, and all four officers have been facing charges since this happened. Do you think what they did was warranted?
I'll answer that. Basically, what they did wasn't warranted. The biggest problem with what went on was it went against the department rule that they had, and it went against just the moral code of how anything is supposed to be done when it comes to dealing with prisoners. Mr. Floyd was already in cuffs. Mr. Floyd was already being detained. Mr. Floyd, as a matter of fact, was placed in the back of the police car.
You know, you hear him saying many times that he can't breathe, that please get off him, and
It takes 20 seconds to put someone to sleep in a sleeper hold. So just imagine being in that position for 9 minutes. Oxygen stops going to the head, as well as the second officer, who was a rookie. The compressions were also being done to his back.
What should the officers have done? Anyone else able to weigh in on what the proper course of action should have been in that case?
They should have just placed them in the vehicle. Once they're in the backseat of a vehicle, they can kick and scream and all they want to, and you monitor what's going on in the backseat. But the backseat has a wall in between the driver and the passengers in the backseat, so the drivers couldn't get hurt like that.
Can you weigh in on this? I'd like to hear your perspective on this.
My perspective is that they did nothing that was according to the policies and procedures that they have out there. This had to do with a mindset of a officer, Chauvin. He chose to do what he did. Those officers that were there, regardless whether they have 1 day on the job or 4 years on the job, they have a responsibility to serve and to protect the people that they are patrolling. None of them did that. None of them gave him first aid and rendered to him once he was unconscious. This is unthinkable. This is an act of modern day lynching.
Clifton, you talked about these rules and regulations that are placed so that officers know, how far they can do certain things. Is that something that is across police departments across the nation, or is it specific to each city like Minneapolis or New York? There's just basic understanding across the nation.
Each municipality has their own procedures. The one thing that is should be across all policing, to not put your knee on someone's neck with all your weight for 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
I know that you've all shared personal feelings about Floyd's death, and it seems like you're all outraged about what happened. For journalists, news reporters especially, we're not supposed to participate in protests because we strive to be as unbiased as possible. If you would like to protest, are retired officers allowed to protest, or is
Yes, they can.
Part of the department, we can protest.
Okay.
So I can also tell you, it is your civil rights and civil duty, if you choose to do so, and protest even when you are still a police officer.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
It's a very thin line. You have to be able to back what you're doing. So if you're locked up because of civil unrest, it's not going to fare very well for you.
Important for the public to know because usually the public just sees police officers in uniform and they don't really know if they can participate or if they can express their views. So thank you for sharing that. Well, thank you so much for those thoughts. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with Black and Blue State of Law Enforcement. Thanks again for joining me, and let's continue our conversation on this topic. Daryl, you had a few questions for your colleagues here.
So Cleve, I'd like you to speak to, during your time as an instructor in the New York City Police Academy, how you were taught to deal with, or how you were told to deal with teaching the future police officers and future supervisors how to deal with social issues, how to deal with their communities. How did they tell you to deal with it?
Well, basically, what happened was in the curriculum, we basically had behavioral science, police science, and law. The behavioral science aspect of it was always, and herein lies the problem. The behavioral science aspect of it was always seen, it was always told to be like silly science. That's what they would call it. But actually, it was the most important part of the curriculum. And it was the most important part because this is where we taught cultural diversity.
Clifton, you're a founding member of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement, a New York City-based advocacy group that focuses on fighting injustices between the African American community and the interactions with NYPD. I know that the group speaks out against police brutality, racial profiling, and police misconduct. Has the group done anything in response to Floyd's death?
Well, the group itself has always been active in terms of how to bridge the gap between the community in which it serves and the police department. We've had numerous of times that we spoke out on the racial profiling that New York City Department has, and the department has said racism doesn't exist in this department. If it exists all over the world, why wouldn't it exist in the department? You prejudge a person based on the color of their skin, the time of day it is, what they're wearing. These are the prejudice that come in to the department. So my belief is that the department needs to check itself.
What do you think about these plans to disband police departments across the U.S.?
Let me answer that. First of all, the word disband really makes no sense, because if you disband, if you said, all right, there's no more New York City Police Department, then what? You know, the thought that you can disband the police department. I heard one young lady say on television that disband the police department, we can police ourselves. We don't
believe that. I fear for safety sometimes, honestly. I want someone to protect me.
Exactly. So it's more so, I think what everybody really wants is, let's restructure the police department. Let's restructure policing.
Cleveland, thank you so much for your time. We're going to take a break. We're going to continue this next time. And thank you all for tuning in for this episode of Black and Blue, the State of Law.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be back next time.
Right.